Well, it's Groundhog Day. Again. And that must mean that I am Professor Robert E.G. Black, and this is the Groundhog Day Project.
It's one of those infinite time loop situations you might have heard about.
It's a thing where the same day keeps happening.
Time.
I wake up every day right here, right in Punxsutawney, and it's always February 2nd.
The last revision is what counts, apparently.
We are on minute 70 of Groundhog Day. We're at the... God Day doesn't last very long. It's weird. It feels so impactful that it still surprises me now that that scene at the... Like, we cut to the tip top in... Don't worry, I'm not pulling out a new source. I'm just scrolling up in the transcript. Not breaking the rules of Season 3. We cut to it at the beginning of minute 67. So we had 67, 68, 69, and now most of 70 before we get out of there. So 67, 68, 69, 70. 4 minutes. And it's actually under 4 minutes because there's a little bit at the beginning of 67 and a little bit at the end of this minute outside. For the scene that is like the turning point of the film, even more than Phil killing himself, we need this moment because this is the moment that Rita agrees to spend time with him. And that means I disagree a lot of the time with the way people frame this movie as a rom-com. It is a rom-com, but it's also not a rom-com. It's trying to be something else. And it's just, as I said last minute, in the guise of a rom-com. But structurally, we need... Why am I talking about rom-com? Oh, Rita. I don't think Phil improves himself to get Rita. He's not trying to get Rita at the end of the movie. That she happens to buy him at the auction and go back with him to his room and they fall asleep there. That's just a weird coincidence about his pursuit of her earlier. That he decides to play an instrument is just a good thing. I don't think he's doing it because Rita listed that as part of her ideal guy. She listed a lot of stuff that he doesn't do. But people latch on to that one positive thing, and it's like a confirmation bias thing where they like latch on and be like, she said instrument, he picked an instrument, he's trying to win her over. And I don't think that's fair. To him or to the movie. The movie is not framing it that way. Instrument is just one of those things that sounded good in writing. And so it's also one of those things that sounds good in, reality. You want to find a way to improve yourself and do something different, you learn how to play an instrument. I would love to learn how to play an instrument. I've tried to play guitar a couple times and gave up before I even learned anything, really, because I have short, fat fingers, and it just feels too hard to hold a guitar and do detailed string work. Similarly, I don't know that I could play piano, even though I have, as I've mentioned in the show before, considered trying to take piano lessons and just learn to play Phil's piano solo and Phil's rendition of Paganini. Yeah, it's Paganini playing the variants on a theme by Rachmaninoff. On a theme by Paganini and by Rachmaninoff. Thank you. So mixing up the composer whose name is in the title and the composer who composed the piece. Just learning those two things. But I think also short fat fingers might not be good for piano. I'm not sure. Doesn't feel right. So I'm like, what instrument works with this? I'm like, I don't know, harmonica, like the guy from Blues Traveler, maybe, or drums or something. But who's got time or the place for drums? Drums are noisy. Harmonica's by itself probably annoying. So I just learned nothing. Or, well, as far as instruments go. I did play saxophone for like a year when I was a kid, but then my saxophone got stolen and that thing cost $200, so I didn't get a replacement and play it again the next year. In, what was that, 6th grade? I wish I'd kept it up. I wish I'd been able to get another saxophone or the first one hadn't gotten stolen. Because then I could pull a Lane Meyer. Play saxophone for a girl. Or play all hot in, I was going to say San Dimas, but no, it's not San Dimas. Where are they in Lost Boys? Probably having multiple cities in California that start with San. It's not San Jose. They're on the coast, where the boardwalk is. I just went there. I went on that roller coaster. Oh, man. It's Monterey Bay, right? The north side of Monterey Bay. I don't know, and that's Lost Boys. Who cares?
For the record, it is the real city of Santa Cruz pretending to be the fictional city of Santa Carla.
Moving on. No, that guy was hot. Everyone remembers that moment from Lost Boys. That saxophone player. I was on, I told you I wake up every day. Oh, we hadn't gotten into the dialogue yet, had we? Rita asked at the end of minute 69, how are you doing this? And Phil says now, I told you, I wake up every day, right here, right in Punxsutawney. And it's always February 2nd. And there's nothing I can do about it. If you still can't believe me, listen. And she says, oh, Phil. And he says, in 10 seconds, Larry's going to come through that door and take you away from me. Now pay attention to this minute if you watch it, because it is hilarious. Because he said that part so far. That's how he got. But Rita, kind of silently, is a little confused. She's like, Larry. Like she's not sure who Larry is. In this moment, she doesn't understand. And Phil continues, but you can't let him. And again, she's like, Larry. And he's like, please, believe me. You've got to believe me. She doesn't know who Larry is, kind of like Frodo doesn't know who Legolas is. If you know that meme. And then Larry comes in, and he's got his prepared line, but Phil has now written it on the receipt that's on the table. And Larry says, you ready? We better get going if we're going to stay ahead of the weather. What's that? As Rita looks at the receipt. Yes, what's that? She says, we're going to stay ahead of the weather. Phil has written down Larry's line. He knew what he was going to say. Maybe this is the difference between today and yesterday. Because you know he tried this scene before. They've had this conversation. Why did I decide that? Oh, the timing of the waiter dropping the plates. Because knowing the timing with this conversation, he would have to have had this conversation at this time. He doesn't just know what time it is. He's not a clock. He knows things in reference to other things. Timing-wise, is this correct for when Larry comes in? Yeah, ish. Comes in within a minute of the dishes being dropped. Or a minute after. Yeah, I think that's accurate. For prior minutes. Wait, that means we would have heard the dishes when he had the pastries on the table. Which means Nancy shouldn't have been sitting down at her table already. Except, butterfly effect, anything different Phil did this morning could have affected Nancy's day. Phil's sign girl, her friend, could have interacted with Nancy and slowed Nancy down. We don't know. There's plenty of options. There's things we can't see. It's not a plot hole because it's not the plot. It's just background characters. Background character hole. When Nancy's not at the diner or at Phil's place or standing next to the gazebo at Gobbler's Knob, does she even exist? Yes, she does. You people are getting weird philosophy stuff right now. Stop it. Cut to Gobbler's Knob. Phil and Rita walking... Which direction are they walking? They're on the same walkway we've seen Phil come into the square on. The gazebo is barely visible at the edge, but... So they're walking north.
Correction, they are walking south. Behind them, though you can't really see it, is the Tip Top. Behind the camera is the Pennsylvania Hotel. The war monument in the middle of the square is right at the edge of the screen on the left. The square has mostly emptied of people. This movie tends to have extras walking one way or another in the background whenever they're out in the square, which, in Woodstock at least, is a little unrealistic. That square got so quiet and empty once the festivities were over. There would be people, because it was the town square, but it didn't feel like it was a strange switch. Like, I walked away from the town square to go find the public library, and when I got back to the town square, it was basically empty. The change in the vibe was weird. Rita says, maybe it really is happening. I mean, how else could you know so much? And Phil responds, well, there is no way. I'm not that smart. Which is fun. That's funny. He's turning his humor on himself. That's good. And Rita says, maybe I should spend the rest of the day with you. As an objective wit. She's going to say witness, but we'll get to the rest of this sentence next minute. That's all for minute 70. Rita believes him. Rita's going to spend the day with him. And this is definitely the turning point of the film. After this day is over, I've said before, you could argue, and I did in the blog, that the act structure of the film could be framed as each act ends with Rita in Phil's room, though the timing is a little off, because she was in his room at the end of date night, and that was kind of the end of his adolescent phase, because then it was slap, 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 slap. I don't know how many times I just said slap. Series of slaps, and then stealing the groundhog, suicide, 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 into God Day. So he needed the bad things to come, and then Rita is going to be in his room again next minute for the end of Act 2.
as things change for the better. And then, of course, she's in his room again at the end of the film. The minutes, the timing is a little off, but that's just really an editing problem. And they added an extra, 3-4 minutes at the beginning of the movie with the newsroom sequence. And because they had the newsroom sequence, we get a couple minutes of them driving to Punxsutawney. If we had just started, for example, with them driving into Punxsutawney, the movie would be 5 minutes shorter at the front end. So then the timing of these act structure could be a little better for my version. Really, Act 2 begins when Phil realizes he can have the adolescent phase. But it's a weird poetic sort of rhyming that Rita ends up in his room 3 times that we see. And each is a very different tone and context. Anyway, for you, your assignment, should you choose to accept it, go to someone's room. That feels wrong. With consent only. And don't go memorizing information about them to pretend like you know who they are. Less Nancy, more... I was going to say more Lorraine, but we don't know how he picked up Lorraine. He probably did the same thing he did with Nancy. Or less. Lorraine is who he went to the movie with, in case you haven't been keeping up. Go have a good time with people you like, people you care about. I hope they care about you too. If not, know that on some level I care that you exist. Don't come asking for money or anything. Or favors, but I'm glad you're there. Otherwise, I'd just be talking to an empty classroom. Oh, wait. I am talking to an empty classroom right now. Well, that's okay. Gotta record somewhere.
You were gonna say that.
This has been a production of Lemming Drops Studio. You can find links to more at lemmingdrops.com or join the Facebook group Lemming Drops Studio Tour. Also, you can support all my shows at patreon.com/lemmingdrops.
What is wrong in the end which never comes? Or which comes again and again, lapping, like waves.
Since the Big Bang set everything in motion, everything that happens in this universe has to be the way it is. Particles unfolding the way they're destined to.
How do you sleep at night? You've never seen Groundhog Day?
Yeah, you know Groundhog Day is not a documentary.
Remember when Groundhog Day was just a movie?